I mean, I endeavor to be wise. I'd much rather have wisdom than riches, because I think wisdom will enable you to generate wealth. Something I'll say about social capital as well, and having good, strong relationships, is that actually if they're nurtured well and you truly care about someone, not just for the transaction of what you're there for in that moment, but on a human level, I've seen that to produce monetary value as well.
It's very important to be able to be independent and go out by yourself and go on holiday by yourself, go to the cinema by yourself, go on dates by yourself, be financially independent by yourself and not depend on anybody for anything. But once you've got that as a foundation, that you can do this by yourself, then we need to be with people, we need to have community, we need to collab, because without that, it's a very lonely journey in life. These days, we're all trying to be too independent. You need to be able to fall back on yourself and not completely be dependent on someone else. Know that it's going to be better with people, and having a team and having people by your side. We are better with people instead of without.
So if you have grown up with someone who shares some of the same life experience as you because of the actual physical geographical place, because of the time, you know, you understand the same music or genre or whatever it might be, there's just natural ease, there's great conversation topics, you know, connection 101. But it depends what you want out of a relationship and what the actual idea of relationship is to you. If you want more challenge, if you want more growth and challenge don't come from ease. It doesn't come from people actually saying, yes, I am like you, yes, I see the same as you. It actually comes from that conflict and the sharpening that comes from that conflict, and the growth comes from your ability to then work with another in that conflict. So I would say that there is a plus side to having these split divisions, but what I would say is that shared vision still has to be present.
Just quickly, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who still listens to the podcast. I started 4 years ago, and since then I've had over 1 million downloads. I get 5,000 downloads per month, and I've had over 200 different guests. So a massive thank you to everyone who still listens. If you could please do me a favour, if you could rate and review the podcast, that will be amazing, because it helps get the podcast out to new, conscious people like yourself. And my goal is to awaken as many people around the world. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's YesKingOliver, should you wish to see what I get up to on my day-to-day moments. Back to the episode.
So growing up, I've literally watched my mum do everything. She has literally been the masculine in the house. She has taken charge. She has done everything. So I've seen a woman just get shit done. And I've seen my dad, on the other hand, who just allowed himself to be mothered, which is not how it's supposed to be. He's supposed to be the masculine. She's supposed to feel safe so she can sort of surrender and be in her feminine. But for whatever reason, my mum was the masculine. So I've witnessed women get shit done. And as a result, I would never, ever let a man run my company or have an assistant that is a man, because a woman, because I've seen my mother so well getting shit done, get stuff done. And it's ironic how the people in the power at the top always get their mates, which are men. And I think it's because they are threatened by women, because they get their mates involved, because they kind of know that they can just sort of just get away with shit. And a woman will not allow people to get away with shit. And as a result, they will feel threatened. And if it's about who does the quality of the job better, in my opinion, it's going to be a woman. So because they know this, they put men in charge, because then they can't really have somebody holding them accountable. And yeah, I will always have a woman in charge of anything over a man every single time.
I love that. I share a similar journey to you, in that my dad actually became paralyzed from the waist down when I was 14. So I've always seen a woman in charge, particularly from my teenage years onwards. I'd say I've softened over the years in my approach to this, though. I, at one point, definitely took on my mum's role. I remember my mum sat me down when I was 14 and she said to me, Sarah, never ever rely on a man. And I said, okay, right, that's lodged in there somewhere. And we've spoken about it at length over the years as the different ways that's worked out in different dynamics. And she explained to me what she really meant. She said, look, what I was trying to say to you was, look, in this situation where your dad has had this happen, what would we have done if? I hadn't gone to university, if I hadn't got a teacher's degree, how would we have had food on the table, and what would we have done? She said, all I wanted was for you to be resourceful. I didn't want that to turn into any negation of men or poor relationship with men, or choosing men that couldn't support you, for example, which was something that played out in my 20s. I've come to a place now where, yes, I believe that women have a great place in power. However, I think the most powerful place that we can be is in collaboration and support of each other and with each other. And it shouldn't matter what sex or gender you associate with. It is about your skill, your attributes, what you bring to the table, and whether you're cut out for the job.
Yes, I was actually walking around Bristol, and I was just seeing the nightlife and going back into like my childhood state where I used to just go out and do everything by myself. And one of the things I became aware of is that, I had no friends growing up, so I used to go out by myself, and I was out by myself again. And I was thinking about how I've got such a massive community from Ansel, from the festival scene and from the ecstatic dance scene, and how I would always choose to go out with people such as my friends. And then I realized that it's very important to be able to be independent and go out by yourself and go on holiday by yourself, go to the cinema by yourself, go on dates by yourself, be financially independent by yourself and not depend on anybody for anything. But once you've got that as a foundation that you can do this by yourself, then we need to be with people. We need to have community. We need to collab, because without that, it's a very lonely journey in life, because you can't be doing shit by yourself. We're like pack animals, and we've grown up from having families, and in tribes we always had each other. And these days we're all trying to be too independent. For example, when you took what your mum said is, as do everything by yourself, it wasn't quite meant like that. It was, you need to be able to fall back on yourself and not completely be dependent on someone else, but know that it's going to be better with people and having a team and having people by your side. So that was my realization on the weekend, that we are better with people instead of without.
Yeah, and I think what came up for me as you were talking about that is codependency, and how codependency on another can form relationally if we're kind of not strong in our own self. And I think that you only really see yourself though in relationship. So we can do all of this inner work, we can do all of this theorizing, and a lot of it is idolizing and idolization of, I want this, or I am this, or I can be this. But it's only actually when you're in a dynamic with another in relationship, whether that's in the workplace, whether that's in a romantic relationship, whether that's your mother, whether that's your friend, that you start to see yourself more. I think we are creatures that are designed to be in relationship and connection. And it is the requirement, yes, to love yourself and be sure of who you are, but actually the adaptability and relatability with another is one of our superpowers as a race. And we only have transformed and grown because of adaptability. And that often comes in relation to another.
I was speaking to somebody the other day, and they were saying how people that are neurodiverse, such as ADHD, Tourette's, OCD, autism, whatever, back in the day, they would have been given a specific role unique to them. So rather than just like everyone just sort of being the same and you do that and I'll do that next time, it was like, no, this person's really good at waiting for the fish to jump out because he's got the ADHD focus. This person's obsessed, so they're not going to go to bed until they've caught the fish. And as a result, all these neurodiverse people would have specific roles. So back in the day, they were celebrated for being different. Whereas nowadays, if you're not the norm doing everything, then we're now the odd ones out. And it was very interesting because it just meant that not only are we shaped by our environment, but there is like genetics and different brain patterns have continued over the years, which means that specific people will just be better at specific roles than others, irrelevant to like gender and sex, whatever. And you got to make the most of that person's ability to do that role rather than having general people do it because of equality and shit. We have to accept that not everyone is going to be better than the other person at that role, whether they're male or female.
I agree. I think, nature versus nurture, if you bring it down to a simplified debate, but within that is such nuance and context. What one person is going to be good at, how do we know? That's made up of how they've been brought up, you know, what gender or sex they are, you know, what other factors go into that, and how much time does one have, or does a parent have, if they're being brought up by their parents, to actually go through that journey with that child, and also how much of it is found through exploration. It's why people say at a young age, follow what you're passionate about or pursue what you actually like, because through that you're going to find out what you're really good at, and I believe through skills sit at the right tables.
What's the one thing that you're thinking about lately when you are in your boss mode, in terms of like how to evolve as a human and not let work take over?
Such a good question. I think as of late, so I started my business when I was 19, so I was very young. I'm now 36. As of late, last year I was in a very business heavy part of my journey, for very practical reasons. The context of the UK had shifted slightly. We were growing overseas. I had an ops director who was with me for 7 years, who transitioned into a different job. So there were things that brought me back into the business, and made me very like focused in. I think now I've kind of zoomed out this year and gone, what are the other elements of Sarah? What are the other parts of what it means to be me that I maybe negated last year? I love doing work with human trafficking. I love mentoring people. I love people. I love socializing. And so bringing those thoughts into me, what is it that makes me me? And so if you ask me one question, I've asked myself a lot as of late, what does life mean to me? What are the things and the components that go into having more life, and focusing on that?
Yeah, so growing up, I just wanted to be a millionaire. And so I was just non-stop coming up with business ideas. And that was all I thought about. That was my obsession. I woke up the next day, how can I make money? If I've not got an idea, let's create an idea and build. And you get stuck in this rut of just building and building and building. And the more you build, the more scared you are of losing what you built. So it's almost like you go into a double down mode of like, fuck, now I've got to maintain this shit. So now you put even more time and energy into that thing. But it becomes a point where you realize it's not just all about this. And then you become aware of like, okay, what do I like? What do you like? What's my passion? There's more to life than just all we've ever known of just building and building and building. But then often you look back and you realize, holy shit, I've accomplished and built so much that it's never just going to crumble. It's just my fear of going back to the younger me, which is I really want something. I really want money. I really want freedom. Finally getting it and not wanting to lose that freedom and control, but the foundation is there. And like the more work you put in, the stronger the foundation is. So it's almost like it's important to put as much time and energy into building something at the beginning, but then also knowing when to step away and to surrender control a little bit, maybe have someone else run the business, and truly not be fearful that it's not going to be able to run as good as you would have run it. And even if that is true, you have to let someone else run it if you want to be free. Otherwise, you'll be running the whole thing forever. So it's like, it might not be run as good as me because you're the founder or whatever. But for me to have the next phase open, I've got to step down. I know shit's going to go wrong, but I've got to trust the team will fix it and sort it out as a business. And I don't need to be there to oversee every little thing. Otherwise, you just never escape that survival mode, which often entrepreneurs create because there was a struggle or a lack of control or a financial situation, often linked to their parents, that made them want to have money. And then they realize, oh, that is no longer there anymore. That was 10 years ago. Like, that's it. That's not at the same time.
100%. And I think it's realizing what season you're in. And there were seasons, if I look back in my 20s, where the most important thing to me was building that business. And if I'm honest, you know, maybe at the time I wouldn't have admitted that. I'd be like, oh no, family's still more important, or maybe that's more important. But my actions in retrospect and reflection show something very different. I would make romantic choices if you didn't support my business, if we weren't in this practically. I'm sorry, but you're going. And it wasn't like I didn't grieve this in a massive way. Like I didn't feel this massive sense of loss as I have done in that latter life, because my value was I am building the ship. I'm doing what it takes, sweat, blood and tears, let's go. People have asked me, you know, why didn't you have children? Or, you know, do you want them coming to this age? In my 20s, I never asked myself this question. It was my actions were about building this business. Then when I was, how many years ago was it now? 2.5 years ago, so 34ish. My sister got stage 4 breast cancer when she was 6 months pregnant. She gave birth to my nephew, who just turned 3 the other week. And then she passed away when he was 6 months old, as sadly the cancer spread to her brain lining. Now, this for me was a huge reality shift. That alongside COVID. So COVID had happened maybe like 2 years before, where my whole industry completely shut down. So we're nightlife, hospitality, and events, we're people facing, we're staffing. If it's not bread and butter, if you're not touching people, it's not happening, right? So that was stage 1. And then my sister, stage 2, I'd say, to really having a shift in understanding surrender, understanding letting go, understanding uncertainty, if we can ever actually understand uncertainty and the unknown, and being able to wade through those times. And then with my sister, understanding what my values actually were. Like at the time I was living in Ibiza, I had no plans of coming home. As soon as I knew and could feel intuitively where this was heading, I moved my whole life back. There wasn't even a blink of an eye. And I got to spend her last 10 months by her side. And so again, I think seasons. Now I treat my life differently, and I choose to treat my life differently. Relationships for me are the fundamental heartbeat of life. And I will always put those first. If I had a friend in need over a business call, friend in need, I think now, if they're in my inner circle, that business call you can often rearrange, like life or death, or, it doesn't ride on those things. When you go through real challenging times, you understand it's not your money that holds you, it's your people.
Yeah, so when I was younger, had no friends, so I didn't have to worry about friend relationships. It was just all about me and building and building and building. I'm getting older, and I didn't want kids, marriage and mortgage back then. Nothing that's going to take away my control and freedom, right? As I'm getting older, I'm seeing people my age start to do that. And I'm looking around. I'm not a millionaire yet. My business is great, but I'm not a millionaire yet. And I'm still doing all things about me. Haven't yet gone traveling. So I put traveling on hold until I was a millionaire, because then I could travel forever. Okay, going traveling this year, realized I didn't need $1 million, right? A grand to Bali was plenty, right? Realized that now. I realized that marriage and mortgage and kids, that was all stuff I didn't want because of like past patterns of my childhood. So I've reversed all of that, right? And now I look around and I've got so many amazing friends and people. And now I've got to put more time and energy into these people and conversations. So my brain's like, fuck, I just want to get back to what I was doing, right? And like you say, these people are your support and foundation, right? You got to give these people time. You can't just focus on, say, you in the business, because that can disappear. Friendships won't if you nurture them. So then I'm remembering, oh, fuck, this is what I always wanted growing up, friendships and relationships. Instead, my attention was on the business. So now I'm at the crossroads of like, okay, I've now got incredible people. They need time and energy. Call them, text them, meet up with them. It's too easy just to go back on the laptop and start building and doing my own independent thing, right? No, they're going to be there in the future. The business might not. As you say, COVID wipes everything out of the way. And then what you're left with? You could have been left with amazing friendships if you'd nurtured them. Instead, you could have been left with nothing because you're so busy focusing and building this. So when I link that back to now I'm going traveling, I don't regret anything because it's all perfect timing. But it's like that realization of now, which is you were in a headspace and now you're out the headspace and now you can see things clearer. Like when a situation happens where the COVID things happen and it makes you realize and put things into perspective. Like we need situations to happen for us to see the same situation differently, even though it's exactly the same. It takes a situation to make us really see what is important in life, what means the most in life. A friend needs a call them. Business call can wait.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, often it does take like not nice situations for us to realize this shit. But that's just the way life is.
They say a wise person learns from the experiences of others. And that's what they say wisdom is. I've heard that quoted. I can't remember who it is. And a smart person will learn from their own experiences. I mean, I endeavor to be wise. I'd much rather have wisdom than riches, because I think wisdom will enable you to generate wealth. Something I'll say about social capital as well, and having good, strong relationships, is that actually if they're nurtured well and you truly care about someone, not just for the transaction of what you're there for in that moment, but on a human level, I've seen that to produce monetary value as well. And that's not going in with the intention of farming it in that way. It's saying through the health of this relationship, through this dynamic, because I'm intentionally building relationship, which is a two-way exchange. When you need me, I'm here. When I need you in here, I'm here. I'm listening to what you need. You're listening to what I need. We're compromising, we're conversing, we're talking, we're doing this together in whatever way that means. That produces a foundation that's solid. It produces trust. It produces all the things that mean that you can actually transact business well. So I'd say investing in that isn't separate to generating wealth. It's highly fundamental to long-term wealth creation.
I'm getting flashbacks of like people living in small villages and local towns, right? You'd have the post office, you'd have the milkman, the fireman, the plumber, the gardener, right? They all used each other. They all knew each other. Their parents knew their parents, and their children know their children. So they've got the most amazing relationships with these people. These people probably go out of their way to help you. If you needed something, they would know somebody. And so through the extended network of your closest people, you pretty much got everything that you need. Instead, we're not cherishing relationships that we should, and instead we're seeking outside for these things that are probably already there. And as we hold people accountable locally in our group, we're less likely to have people shit on us, basically, because we now know people in the same group. So that's also lost, because now we're outsourcing to people all over the place. There's no accountability. They don't know us. There's no care. They don't really care about the person or the product. It is just about money. And obviously that can disappear. Having relationships where you know that you can rely on somebody, and if you need something, you know they will get it for you. That's there forever. That is solid. That's foundational. And you don't really need many people. A close network of 7 people, like where everyone knows each other, basically. Yeah.
They say in Jewish communities that wealth used to have to pass through the community 12 times before it went outside, or like business and trade. So rather than looking to trade outside of your community, you did it within, and you kept on doing it within. If you look at the Jewish people over time and space and history, they are one of the wealthiest people on the planet. They knew how to build this sense of community, and they were travelers. So they would go from place to place to place to place with great wealth. And I think there's a great key in that. Who do you know? How can you keep passing business their way? How can that then trade back to that person, having that network and that community around? I mean, we've seen it for years with the Freemasons, with business communities that exist. The idea is that I am loyal to you first and foremost before going outside.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to do like the banking scheme where Jewish people in the tops of banks will give free money to you if you're Jewish, or something like that, to keep it in the line or something. What you're saying, is that, have you heard that before?
Say that one more time.
If you're Jewish, certain banks, they'll give out free loans to you, so no interest. So they'll give out the money, but there'll be no interest if you're Jewish. Maybe it's to do with like the family name and the family name of the bank or something like that.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
I didn't know this. That's very fascinating.
But it makes absolute sense, because, keep it in the family. That's why, like, so many people nowadays, you could say, don't have much money, because it doesn't come down the family. So let's just say back in the day, you'd have a farmer, right? They've got land. They give it to their kids, and they give it to their kids, and it comes down, and they all make cash flow from the land. Nowadays, for whatever reason, people want to cash out. They want a bigger house, they want a car, they want to go on holiday or whatever, and they'll sell it to another family. So now those kids now don't have generational wealth, and as a result, they have to rent off another person's land, or they've got to buy someone else's land that is increased in value because they also want to have Lamborghinis and go on holiday and live a luxurious life. And so now everyone's got reduced wealth by huge amounts because it's now there's nothing to come down. So obviously they've mastered that, hence why they're a very rich religion, because that's how it's supposed to be. You give your local village is your tribe, it's your family, it's your packet, it's your wealth, it's everything. And now we're just spread out all over the place.
I read a book quite some years ago, but I often reference it. It's called Family Fortunes. It's an older book, and it talked about how wealth was generated and kept through families. And it looked at families across different cultures, across different generations. And it identified, there are a couple of points that I'll raise here. It identified the 3 top forms of investment that across time, space, and culture were common to wealth generation and actually keeping the wealth, was fine art, land, and physical gold and silver. It then talked about how families kept that generationally was down to a matriarchal figure and the family structure. So there's the idea of actually generating wealth, that being one form, but how do you keep it? It is about the culture of that family or that unit as much as it is what happened in one generation. You know, we can imagine that crazy young son who gets given all of that wealth, doesn't know what to do with it, and just spends it in the next generation. So the family cultural values, which was often instilled by the female within the family, was key to that success.
And as the generation of dating apps comes along, you're now dating somebody probably from another city, right? So you don't know each other. Whereas in the old days, you would have been dating like the other farmer's child, right? So your parents are probably still together, so they could collectively teach and ingrain the kid, okay, this is what happens when you get mummy and daddy's wealth. You're going to hold on to it, then you're going to have kids, then you're going to put it into gold, arts and land, then you're going to teach your kids, and it will come down. Nowadays, you've got kids, literally, they're not even one, and their parents have divorced, or they weren't even married, right? They're just not together anymore. And so not only have you got 2 different families with probably completely different morals and backgrounds, but you now got a kid who hasn't got parents together. So like, where the hell are they going to get this information from? And it's all because of like the online web of we're now finding partners outside our 5-mile town village point.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fascinating point, because the world has become so accessible through the internet, and it has done for years. And so culturally, cross-culturally, is it a bad thing to date cross-culturally? No, I think it's an amazing thing. Do we need to date people or have long-term partners with people who grew up in our environment? I definitely think there is something about shared values and shared culture. So if you have grown up with someone who shares some of the same life experience as you because of the actual physical geographical place, because of the time, you understand the same music or genre or whatever it might be, there's just natural ease, there's great conversation topics, connection 101. But it depends what you want out of a relationship and what the actual idea of relationship is to you. If you want more challenge, if you want more growth and challenge don't come from ease. It doesn't come from people actually saying, yes, I am like you, yes, I see the same as you. It actually comes from that conflict and the sharpening that comes from that conflict, and the growth comes from your ability to then work with another in that conflict. So I would say that there is a plus side to having these split divisions, but what I would say is that shared vision still has to be present. So both of you have to be committed to, we are bringing up the family unit like X. And I think that can happen cross-culturally, because views, opinions, states of being, and everything has become so geographically dispersed. You could find someone who thinks like you, who lives in Lebanon, whereas before you might not have had that same experience, right?
Yeah, for example, to that question, right? It's okay to, like, say, cross-breed with other cultures if you're on the same page with where you're going, right? And because now everything is online, a person in Lebanon can be watching the same shit in America on TV, and they become like part of the American culture. And someone in Scotland can also watch the same shit on American TV, and you become part of that culture. So now you're pretty much the same person. You just see different upbringing, but you've got the same mindset. You see the world the same vision. You both want to work online and create a business. So great. Your paths are now aligned, but generations of how they used to bring up their children and morals might be different, even one generation before. So even though you could be on the same path moving forward, we've got to look back and be like, okay, well, our generations before were completely different. In Lebanon, this is how they live life. In Scotland, this is how they live life. So we're like half becoming evolved here, but yet we're half programmed with like the generation behind us. So like say, you'd have the family saying, okay, wealth needs to be kept in the family by doing this, and this. But we realize that we're in a modern world where you can't carry bags of gold around with you because we're travelers. We're going to Bali and Thailand and everything. You can't put all the money in art because, again, we're traveling around the world. And land now costs so much money that you can't even afford to buy the land. So it's like, it's now a mixture. It's like we're going somewhere the same, but we've also come from different backgrounds, and like communicating, okay, we're half different, half the same. Where are we going to clash? Where are we going to align? Because it's not just completely like we've got the same upbringing and we're going in the same direction, because that's where everyone else around us is also going.
100%. And I think that comes back to what I said earlier about adaptability. I think it's one of the biggest things that we can do as humans. A lot of us don't try, or I don't think commit to it enough. I think there's been a generation of people where we've been really firm with boundaries, with self-love, with me, basically, and individualism. And that's what that boils down to. It's like, if there's a no and a yes, and I know what I like, and I'm this and I'm that, and I know because of X, and I wouldn't do it like this, it's rigidity. And rigidity doesn't allow for life. It doesn't allow life to flow through it. And when life comes at it, it doesn't quite know what to do, because it doesn't fit in the grid of what you had, of what you want. And that doesn't mean that we lose the essence of who we are, but I think it means that the two things can exist as true in one moment. We have the ability to say, this is what is super important to me. This is who I am. This is how I've been brought up. These are the values that I have. This is what I'd really like to create in the world. What is it you want to create in the world? What are the values that you see and you have? And you hear those and you see there's going to be points that match. There are going to be points that do not. Those are not red flags. Those are not reasons to not move forward with someone necessarily. You haven't actually outworked those in practice. It's only through living together and seeing those things, and actually also letting a lot go. Like when we hold on to these things of I, me, this, it's restrictive. Sometimes you've got to let it go and be like, well, let me just put on a different belief system. Let me see what that plays out like. Do I feel completely compromised? Is this a big hell no? Like listening into your body, to your gut, all that is still there. Can we sit with those things for a little length of time, rather than acting on every impulse and thinking, like you said, with the dating culture, next, let's move on. Next, let's, swipe right.
If you had one day left to live, what is the one thing that you would tell the rest of the world?
Do it now.
Everything? Like
No.
write down the bucket list of all the shit you want to do: skydiving, traveling, going to a French restaurant, eating a snail. Write it all down and do it now.
That thing, do it now. I didn't want to overthink the question that you asked me. So when you asked me that question, no, you can't do everything now. Am I an impulsive person? Absolutely, right? But everyone knows that one thing. When I just said, do it now, what's the first thing that came to you?
Like travel, which I'm doing.
There you go. And it might be, go and give your mum a hug. Do it now, right? Whatever it was that came to you in that moment, that's what you've got to do now.
And is there anything you want to promote or plug before we finish?
Oh, what do I want to promote and plug? Well, I mean, if anyone's in nightlife hospitality and events and needs staff, check out Phoenix Staffing UK. I have an awesome podcast called Provocateurs, where I interview people with provocative, different ways of living and life journeys, and also people in the nightlife hospitality and events industry. So click follow, subscribe, check out who we interview on there. That would be awesome.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please remember to subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, like the episode, and comment below. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's YesKingOliver. Take a look at the other videos to your side. And if you just want to listen to this podcast, you can do so on Apple and Spotify and most other platforms by going to talkwitholiver.com. solitude.com.